Alright, time to talk about races. Now, very important for a MMORPG that you need races. It adds a backstory and makes things much more interesting. Now, so many times they have too few races available for you. They have like 3, and it doesn't even matter that much which one you get. Or they have too many of them. And that's a rare case, but sometimes they do have too many. It also makes it close to worthless. And a lot of them, there's the only difference between the races usually is just looks of your character. There's not any significant difference. I mean, it's almost just based on preference of which race you want to be. Now, classes are the ones that really have the problem with too many of. It's not that there's too many selections, it's just that there's too many crappy ones. Or too many ones that make no damn sense, like Bard. I'm gonna go out and fight in battle, guys. Playing their stupid damn flute. It's like, oh, thanks, man, you're a real help here. And another thing that not many games add in combinations of races or classes because they're either too hard for them to think about or too difficult, or they only do it because they need to, like in Final Fantasy. I mean, there's almost no balance or no good balance between the classes, so they have to allow you to do sub jobs, otherwise the game would just suck. But even if you could get a good balance, it doesn't mean you should just wipe it out of your game altogether. I mean, people want to be able to do these combinations ever since Dungeons and Dragons. But allowing people to do combinations or some ways to do things that their class would not normally be able to do would be really interesting and be a lot more strategy involved, but you have to give some sort of balance out. Like Final Fantasy 11 used sub jobs can only go to half your main level, but you could also do if you had a half a character with 2 classes, make it twice as hard to level up. It needs twice as much experience going through, or whatever works. And that way at least there's some negatives on that. Or you could add in with every advantage there's a disadvantage type thing. Put that into the game, so kind of like with maybe Pokemon, where you have 2 together and their strengths combined, but also their weaknesses combined, and they're vulnerable to certain things. Now with races, combining races with a lot of games really doesn't seem to matter except for just preference. Now if you added in actual advantages that certain races have, or sensories, or height or speed or strength or whatever, and it allowed you to mix and match those advantages with disadvantages with that would if that was the case, then you should allow it. But in the same hand with the backstory, you need the racism. You need people of a certain kind tend to go with people of a certain kind, and mixes don't usually happen. I mean, even in real life, melting pots don't happen as much. People tend to go with people who are like themselves. So if you do allow it, you shouldn't allow it. There should be some weird thing about it. You should figure out a way to work that in a story so it at least makes sense, and you don't have a bunch of halflings or whatever all over the weird ass place. And speaking of racisms, in games this is a good thing. I mean, the quarrels and the gameplay, it's really increases if you add an incentive against certain things, like maybe those trolls deal double damage against dwarves, or maybe my elf doesn't like, fighting with little people, so he never fights with the dwarves or the other things. And if you could add that, in some incentive way, that would really add to the game and add some conflict. I mean, maybe that could be a negative if you had, you had an interracial character, and it got the advantages of being those two races or whatever, but it was then shunned by the community of both races or whatever, or everyone that hated each one of those races, or just hated interracial, characters. And that could be your negative. You want to be able to train as many places, or go into as many cities with the same fairness, kind of like real life racisms. And you could of course do that with mixed classes as well, where one class doesn't like the other class, but you're mixing them so that when you go to trainers of that certain class, they are more hesitant to train you, or they won't. You have to go to a certain other person, or you have to prove yourself in a different way, or you have to get a higher level before they'll train you. You could figure this out in any way, but you could make it happen. But talking all about these differences in races and how there should actually add that into the game, the conflict between races, and not just have mosh poshes of people of all different races going all over the place. But they never even seem to consider the possibility of classes really hating each other. I mean, they make spells that diminish a certain magic attack or things like that, but in so many books and things like that, there's the thoughts of how it's bad luck to kill a wizard, or things like that. In other games, they have put in like wizard killer specifics, or healing killer specifics, like where your character, if it is of that specific type that just really hates wizards and goes out and kills them, and that's part of their character and part of their purpose. I mean, they have that, but they don't have the racism killers, the specific ones that just have this innate ability to go against this other race or whatever, have this deep hatred. I don't know, you could put that in the backstory of their entire family's wiped out by them or whatever. But you need that conflict and stuff like that. I mean, they have it with other games, like WoW. The Horde people hate the Alliance people, and vice versa. If you put in that extra thing where they start to care and give a damn, it adds to their motivation to want to play the game. It's like, oh, I really want to take out this race, or this guild, or this faction, or this class. I hate this class, But you add that in there, they have extra motivation, other than just making it so that they couldn't possibly care and had no incentive to give a damn who they kill. You have them actually involved, wanting to battle and wanting to face these people at any cost. It will add to the fun, and you're not just going out to mess with people.